Okay. I feel like a whale. It's wonderful.
4 weeks. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh.
Do you want to see my belly? Look how big my belly
I
is.
felt like you just blasted
so
through this
cute.
one.
So I'm Kayleen Fitzer, and my husband and I have 2 kids, and I'm pregnant with my 3rd right now. So yeah.
I am Kim Stumbo. I'm known as the one-arm wonder mom for obvious reasons. I live in Chesapeake, Virginia in the United States. I was born and raised in North Carolina originally.
I'm Jackie. I'm Tiffany. That's Colin. And this is Scuttle.
This is Scuttle.
Tell me a little bit about your little one, Alara.
Well, Alara's literally the best. Yeah, obviously everyone thinks that their baby's the most beautiful baby, and they are always correct. But she's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen in my life. She's intelligent. She's strong.
Too strong.
Yeah. She's full of personality.
She communicates in her own way, and she doesn't scream like she used to, which is great.
All the videos I see of her, she's just so happy and so chill. It's so sweet. Tell me about your little one.
Well, as you can see, my little one is not so little anymore. In no time, he's going to be taller than we are, so we want him to stay little forever. But he's grown into such a good boy. He's top of his class. He's a good friend. He's a great son. Like all of our friends joke, like, I'll trade with you all the time because they know what a good boy he is. Anything else?
You're like, I'm awesome.
My son is 3.5. My daughter is 1.5, and we're like 16, 17 weeks now with our 3rd baby.
That's wonderful. I didn't know you were pregnant too.
I am, yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's so wonderful.
Ezra is my spirited little red-headed, independent, fiery, opinionated little guy. He's just a fun kid, but he has challenged us in more ways than my brain could have ever prepared itself for, which is probably good. My daughter, Janessa, is pretty much the polar opposite of Ezra in every way. Just like chill as a cucumber most of the time, sweet and snuggly. Yeah, it's crazy how different they are from each other.
So I am a boy mom. I have 3 boys. They are 11, 8, and 5. My oldest is in 6th grade. He is a middle schooler. He's your typical boy. He has ADHD. My middle son is 8, and he's in 2nd grade, and he is actually legally blind in his right eye, so he wears glasses full time. And my youngest son is 5. He is not in kindergarten yet, and he was born at 28 weeks, so he is almost a micro preemie is what they refer to as. He was born at 2 pounds 12 ounces.
Oh my gosh, miracle baby.
Yes.
So when you were originally thinking about starting a family, did you think at all about how your limb difference would come into play, or did you not really think of it as anything that would?
I did. So I began thinking about my limb difference playing a role in my children's lives before I even had children, probably when I was like 17 to 18, 19 years old, like thinking of those things like I want to get married, I want to have kids, da-da-da-da-da. And I thought about how is my limb difference going to affect them negatively? It was never like a positive thing. I kept thinking they're going to get picked on. What would happen if this happened or whatever? That was where my head was. And sometimes I questioned like, well, how am I going to do things? Because I was an only child and I didn't babysit. So I had no experience whatsoever with babies. So my first child was here you go, figure it out. And I had lost my mom. She passed away when I was 18, so I didn't have my own mother there to help me. So I had to figure everything out on my own. Like, I didn't have a support system.
Just like with everything, having one hand, I've always been like, am I going to be able to do that? Is it going to be hard for me? Are people going to judge me about how I do it? So that was always a thought for me, even before I was pregnant. Once I was pregnant, yes. I think like with the hormones and everything, it actually like elevated my level of stress about it, because so many people, I could just tell, like they were like, oh, you're pregnant, like almost I felt like they were like, how's she gonna do this? And you know, like what people, you can kind of guess what they're thinking in their heads, and it's discouraging, especially when you don't really know for yourself how big of a challenge it's going to be. I mean, so yeah, it definitely came into play. It was something I thought about very frequently.
It honestly never really came into my mind. I mean, I suppose there was like a small part that was like, what if? But I wasn't worried about it. My husband, we talked about it a little bit. So I call my hand my small hand because it's a small hand. So we talked about it a little bit in the sense that my husband was like, I don't know, I'd be like kind of excited if there was another one because he likes it. He jokes around, he calls it my paw. So he's like, I'd like to have another kid with a paw. But no, I mean, honestly, it wasn't even a consideration. It didn't really matter. It didn't hold us back at all.
That's wonderful. I call my arm my stump, and I used to call it when I was younger, I called it my baby hand or lefty. I love how we all have different names for our arms, for our bodies. It's really cool.
It is, yeah, I know. Well, it's so funny because I think sometimes people will hear like Jason refer to it as my paw and be like taken back, like, oh my gosh. You have people that are close enough in your life that like can throw it back at you, or like then it's appropriate, you know what I mean? And so we have that, like he would never say it in like some like derogatory like mean way, you know? It's like it's a term of endearment, and like in genuine legit conversation he wouldn't refer to it as a paw, just like something that's funny between the two of us. And so he just would not have been bummed. In fact, I think there would have been a small part of him that would have really like found that endearing, I think, to have a child with, you know, a hand that looked like mine.
We joked about that too, how great it would be to have a child with a limb difference, because we'd be the perfect parents for that, you know, like it'd be great. When you were thinking about starting a family together, did your limb differences come into that thinking, if at all? Like, did it play into that?
No, I just felt like...
It was like our love, really.
Yeah.
It was just like really easy to be like, that's what we need to do because we love each other super, super much. Then I was thinking like, if we have more than one, then we're already just outnumbered in arms. Because she already, like, if you try and give her a spoon even now, she has 2 arms and she'll like grab your hand, grab the spoon, and you're like, like, what do I do? I just have to just pull it away.
I had questions. I struggled a lot with it initially. Once you have the second and third kid, it's like, no, never mind. Until the preemie threw like a whole different like set of rules into motherhood. But yeah, it was like, once I got through the first one, it was good. I never questioned myself after that.
Did you have any fears looking towards like raising a baby with a limb difference? Did any fears come up for you?
Yeah, well, I would say that pretty much my whole life I never wanted to have children, but I think it came from a fear of being able to hold them, because when I was growing up, I had family members who had young babies, and they would just never let me hold them without like sitting down, which is fine. And like now that I'm a mom, that's completely understandable. Like your hormones just are crazy and you think everyone's trying to kill your baby. So I get it now. But it was really,
like it probably wasn't anything.
Yeah.
It probably was like maybe a slight amount to do with your limb difference because they have that extra fear.
Yeah.
But it was just the general pregnancy.
Yeah, that fear has always been in like the back of my mind, like how to hold them and making sure that you don't drop them, and that's a scary thing.
Yeah, not so much like beforehand, but when she was fresh out, I didn't. They said you have to support the head, but they don't also say like it is just an entirely squishy lump. Like there's the head and there's arms, and like it's all just gonna fall out of you unless you get a good. It's like a balance, just the balance of it, just.
Absolutely, I can't wait to try balancing my squishy. And just like how that's gonna happen.
It's easy.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. But like when people hand me their babies, I'm just like, you trust me? We're good, okay.
Oh my god. I have a story about the first time I held someone's baby ever while I was pregnant. This lady, I was at like a parent meetup group, and she's like I think he was like maybe 6 weeks old. She handed me her son. She's like, I'm gonna go get a cake. Can you hold my baby? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, okay. So I was holding him, and I was pregnant, and I was just like, it's hot always, but I was sweating extra, like just really panicky, like, how do I hold this baby? And he's just staring at me like,
don't kill me.
he was just confident, like, but it was so stressful. I was like, oh my gosh. And this lady just trusted me to hold her 6-week-old baby. But it was fine.
She was a second time mom?
Yeah, she was a second time mom, so she was like, yes, it's fine. But I think it was really nice, and in a way I think it helped me kind of initially just destroy that fear straight away. Even though it was scary. It was just, it was really nice.
Yeah, that's so great. That's so good.
I just really thought that it would go super smooth and was not really worried at all. Spoiler alert, that is not how it went down. Becoming a parent was really hard, and not because I had a limb difference, but just because becoming a parent is really hard. And you can never possibly like, I don't know, think of all of the things that are going to challenge you as a parent. I think that's intentional. I think the way it's supposed to be. So it was cool, but it was really, really hard. So nothing scared me going into Ezra's like life, birth, and everything. But I was a little bit more scared going into Janessa's, just because I had now had this experience with my first child, and I was like, oh my gosh, is it going to be that hard again?
My biggest fear was always, and it sounds stupid now because now I don't care what other people think, but initially it was, how am I being judged by others? How are others seeing me? How are others seeing me as lacking? I didn't want, honestly, like I had thoughts like people would think I was an inadequate parent. I mean, it really went through my head, you know, and this was 11 years ago. I didn't have contact with like others that had limb differences. I was not in a community of any sort. I was on my own. I mean, I knew that there were others out there like myself, but I didn't know anybody, and we couldn't run stories off of each other or share or support each other. So here I am in this world of like two-handed people, and you get stared at. And you get looked at. Even when I was pregnant, like I was like, what are you looking at? When I had my baby and I'm putting them in the seat in the cart in Target, what are you looking at? And like, are you looking at me because you're amazed, or are you looking at me like you're scared that I'm going to drop my kid? So the judgment, then as my oldest got to school age, it transitioned to, is he going to get picked on because of me? You know, like kids pick on each other anyways. They find anything that they can to mess with somebody else about. You know, it's always like survival of the fittest, and we've all been there. But if there's something else that's different about you or different about your family, then that just adds to it. And my son was diagnosed with ADHD in kindergarten. So he already had some idiosyncrasies and some trouble listening and all this stuff that kind of made him a little bit of a target. And I didn't want to be more of a burden. So those were the biggest fears. And then I compensated for those by being overly involved. Like I've been PTA president, I talk in schools, I do all these things to make sure that the kids saw me as, you know, just another normal mom.
Absolutely.
That's how I did.
That's wonderful. And did any of those fears come to fruition? Like, did he get picked on, and like, or did you kind of balance that out?
We did have an issue, yeah. So like I was very involved in schools. I used to have lunch with my kids. You know, I would go up there. I was always involved with the schools. You know, everybody knew me. The teachers knew me. The kids knew me. And we had 1 or 2 kids that had, I'm not exactly sure, but they had reactions towards me, where we were sitting at the table at lunchtime, and there's another table over here. And if your parent comes, they put you in the center table. It's a little special thing. Like, you get to have lunch with your mom. Like, here you go. You're separated from your class. And it was a student from another class that had seen me, and he was probably between 2nd, 3rd grade, something like that. And he just started pointing and whispering to his friends and trying to get his friends to look at me, when his friends actually already knew me because they had been in class with my son. And they're like, what? Like, that's Ethan's mom. Like, what? You know, not making a big deal about it. But he, I think, was newer to the area and was not familiar with me. Therefore, he was pointing it out, and he's like, that's weird, and she's weird, and just kept saying these things. And it was loud, and it was, you know, not necessarily making me uncomfortable, but I knew that this was not something that is appropriate to do with other kids. And so I had to address it. So I did address it. I addressed it with the lunch monitor and said, look, we need to address this. He is now making comments that are not appropriate, and he's trying to draw attention, and I don't think that that's okay. And we are, it's not a bullying situation, but this is not appropriate. And the parents ended up getting a phone call, and their son was talked to about his behavior and stuff like that. No like disciplinary actions or anything like that, but it was something that actually had to be addressed, which I was hoping that would never come, but it did. And it's hard because, as an adult, you're like, hey, I don't really want to tell you this is not how you're supposed to act, but you're also not going to act like this, and you're not going to do this to my son or to me, because I'm not going to have you do this to other people, because I have a thick skin and I can understand where you're curious or where you don't know how to approach a situation, but this is not okay. And what if you are now trying to encourage other children to do the same thing that you're doing? This is not a society that we want. So it was a hard situation, but it came out okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It sounded like you handled it in like the best way possible, like that given the circumstances, and I'm glad it wasn't anything worse.
Yeah, right.
That's really, really good.
You have a confidence with your limb difference, because and like if you have residual limb, that is like a hand that I have. Like it's a big hand, I can kind of hold the whole baby, especially obviously now she can support her head. But people don't really understand how confident you are with like just this and this. And they see me holding the baby, and like I know if she tips one way, I have like I'm paying so much attention. I have that like control to be able to just fix what they do, even if they lurch. Like I'm ready to deal with that. But when people see you holding a baby like this, they're like, oh, like danger. Why is he doing that? But like I know I can just save her. Like there's no risk at all, basically.
Because you know your body, you know your limits, you use your body in ways that people couldn't even imagine, I bet, because they don't think about those things normally. They just see someone who looks different or does things differently, and they're just like, oh my God, what? Like their brains aren't like wired to think that way quickly. And so, yeah, it would be shocking for someone who's never met anyone with a limb difference and just to be like, whoa, are you okay? But it's like, yeah, man, like we're fine. We're good. Did you have any specific fears, if any, coming into being a parent? Like any specific things that you were worried about?
Well, I was nervous of basically the unknown of it all, like what if I would be able to do it. And as he started getting older, I thought about it when he was a baby, but as he started getting older and he was getting closer to like school, I was nervous about him going to school and dealing with kids, because, kids can be mean, and kids kind of express their curiosities in a different way, and he hadn't really been around anybody like that yet, so I was nervous for him, but it ended up being, we've had no issues whatsoever. Like when you originally asked me to do the interview, we were just driving in the car, and I asked him, I said, has anybody ever asked you questions about it or been mean about it? We've had this conversation before, but not for a little while. And he said no. He's like, maybe at the beginning, like in kindergarten or first grade, and that was it. So, and I, in the den leader for his Cub Scout den, and like, there's newer kids there that sometimes like question it or whatever, but it's not like a fear anymore. I think we've conquered that. But originally, that was my fear, him having to deal with any negativity from it and how it would affect him.
I think that's so common. A lot of the parents I'm talking to have the same fear. Like we're just worried about our kids and what they're, but our kids are so great at advocating for us and like, just being like, yeah, it's just my mom. Yeah. That's how it is,
Because we don't even know, we really don't notice it, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is that like should we notice things like that? Like she carries the most of the stuff. Like if we're going upstairs, down, anywhere, she's like carrying and picking up stuff, and me and him have like just like one thing in each hand. We're like, we can't carry anymore, and she's over here like fully loaded going up the stairs. So like things like that, and we'll keep passing her things, and somehow she keeps taking them and holding them, and we like,
or they'll try to hand me something when I already have something in my hand, and I'm like, hello,
like,
and they're like, oh, I forgot, I'm sorry.
One of my cousins just noticed she had one hand like after 5 years. Just she's 36, and she's like, does she have one hand? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, where have you been? She's like, oh my God, what happened? And I was like, she was born that way. And they're like, how does she, like, I think they're blown away at how much she does. And like, I get the curious questions after. So she'll walk away and people will come up to me and go, you know, how did that happen? Or was she born that way? So like, I get like all the uncomfortable questions that like people won't ask her. And I'm like, sometimes I'll make up something. Like, I'll be like, oh, she was surfing in Hawaii and a shark got it. And they're like, really? And I'm like, no, she was just born that way. I know it's really boring. Honestly, it's really amazing at the amount. I only know of one thing that she can't do, and I'm sure she could figure it out. And that's just nailing a nail into a wall. I think it would be more aggravation. Yeah. But I know that she could figure it out. So when people ask me, like, or when people ask, like, what are the things you can't do? We don't really have many answers for that one, because she really can do everything.
That's so wonderful. And oh my gosh, I hear you about hammering nails. It's like the worst thing. If I'm alone, I'm like, "Ugh!" But I've started to use, sometimes I'll use blue tack or sticky tack to kind of hold the nail, and then I can kind of rest the nail on the end of my arm and kind of, but it works sometimes, but it's not like all the time. Sometimes I just like throw the hammer. Yep. But it's a fun challenge, you know, if you have the energy and time, why not?